Good morning, afternoon, and or evening to this world and all who inhabit it, as usual. I hope that you are doing well, and I thank you for joining me today. As you saw from the caption, as you saw when you clicked the video, we will be talking about Throne of Glass. I keep on sniffling because I sneezed about 20 times. Today is the first truly warm day that we have had here in Ohio this year, and I have allergies really bad because I've been out in it a lot. Anyways, the first thing I want to start with is the controversy surrounding how you should read this series, like the order you should read it in. I think that's the most overwhelming part and the one thing that stops people from starting the Throne of Glass series. That's what stopped me from starting it sooner. And I will tell you that I read The Assassin's Blade third. So a lot of people either read it as the first book or the third book. Some people read it as the fourth book, and I think that's probably the stupidest thing that you could do. So don't do that, okay? I love that I read it as the third book. I have this client, because I'm a nail tech, and she read The Assassin's Blade third as well and wished that she read it first. I am so glad I didn't read it first. So it really just depends on the person. I love the order that I read them in, and I think it was perfect for me. That's not how everybody feels, and that's okay. So if you're overwhelmed by this and you're like, I just don't want to read it wrong, read it in chronological order. So read Assassin's Blade first, and then you can start with Throne of Glass and not have to worry about Assassin's Blade again and just read it all the way through. Like I said, I am just personally glad that I didn't read Assassin's Blade first because I would not have watched a video warning me. So that's what I'm about to do for you. I'm about to warn you. If you read Assassin's Blade first, the ending of it is tragic and horrible and will absolutely rip out your heart, spit on it, and stomp it into the dust. And I just want you to know that so that you're prepared. We already know what the ending is, so I already was able to mentally prepare myself. I just didn't know how it happened. I didn't know details. And that's why I liked reading The Assassin's Blade when I read it, because I already knew some of the stuff that was going on and it was already hinted at. And it was really cool getting to see it in more depth and actually getting to see the stories and watch them happen. So I really liked how I did it. You don't have to do it that way. That's okay. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. I'm just telling you why I liked doing it the way that I did, okay? First, we're starting with Throne of Glass. We're just going to completely, fly through these, okay? Throne of Glass is great. It's a 4-star book for me. Some people, it's a 3-star. I liked it. I thought that it was great. You have to keep in mind, she was 16 when she started writing this, and then put it down and picked it up years and years later, finished it, and then continued the series. The writing is not perfect, and it is kind of confusing, and you are like, hey, what's the freaking plot here? What's going on? I still liked it because I'm here for the vibes. I'm not a critic, okay? I am here for the vibes. It's not that deep. That's kind of how I am. If the writing's bad, as long as the story's good, it's fine. And I thought the story was good. Some people don't. That's okay. The biggest thing that I think throws people off that I'm going to try to prepare you for if you have not read this yet is that a lot of people think it's going to be a trials and challenges type of book, and it's not. It is described like it is, and it seems like that's what it's setting itself up for in the first few chapters, but I promise you that is not how it is. We barely get any trials. We barely get any challenges. We barely any of that, okay? So I think that the whole trials, King's Champion, assassin for the royal crown is just the excuse to get her there, and then the real story starts once she's there. But it has nothing to do with that. Not nothing to do with, but it has a lot less to do with that than you would think it would. Like I said, 4-star. I just wanted you to know that going into it. The writing is juvenile, and the plot is not at all what you think it's going to be. But it's still really enjoyable. That's not me crapping on it. That's just me trying to give you realistic expectations, okay? Crown of Midnight was my first 5-star book of the year. Yes, we're moving on that quickly, y'all. Crown of Midnight was fantastic. I loved it. I don't want to hype it up too much because Heir of Fire was even better, but truly, this is how I feel like Throne of Glass should have felt. And this takes place right where Throne of Glass leaves off. There's no 5 years later, it takes place right where it leaves off. And you know how I be. I love that. I love when it takes place right where it leaves off, okay? So this, I loved it. I thought that it was great, and I, at this point in the series, became emotionally invested in all the characters. Also, for the first couple of books at least, there is a love triangle between Selena, the assassin, the main girl, and Dorian, the prince, and Chaol, the prince's best friend, and guard, and right-hand man. I really loved their love triangle because I thought that it was goofy and clumsy and weird and kind of real, kind of realistic, maybe. And besides the fact that this girl just breathes and everybody's in love with her, which we all know is not realistic at all. But my sister did not love their love triangle, at least in the first book. She was like, I'm confused. I think when she read it as if it was supposed to be your typical, average, predictable love triangle, and the author just did a bad job at writing it. How I read it was written weirdly because that's how the love triangle is. It's freaking weird. So that was just in the first one. I think it gets better in the second one. I don't know. To be honest, I love Kale and I love Dorian. I don't love them loving her. I can do without her ending up with it, either of them, to be honest. Assassin's Blade, I already talked about it in the beginning. I was already very clear about it. I already talked about it. Loved Assassin's Blade. It has 5 short stories in it that I think keep you really entertained, and they all go together. Right where it leaves off is right where Throne of Glass takes place and starts. So there is a year gap in between, but she's just in the salt mines as a slave for that year and nothing happens. And well, a couple things happen, but you get told about them in the beginning of Throne of Glass. So anyways, it picks up where it leaves off. This was a 4.5 star. I don't know if I said that yet, and I would recommend it. I'm gonna put this aside now because I really can't tell you about the short stories that are in here without confusing you. I will say real quick before I do set it aside that before I read this, again, I didn't know what it was about. I didn't read anybody else's opinions on it, nothing like that. So I genuinely thought this book was going to be about Celaena becoming an assassin, and it's not. It's about things she did as an assassin the last 6, 7, 8 months leading up to her being enslaved. If Crown of Midnight was a 5 star, this is a 6 star. Heir of Fire was so well done, and it gets a little confusing, but that's just because it picks up where Crown of Midnight leaves off. And Celaena is in a completely different country, essentially. Things are still happening at the palace, so that's 2 separate storylines that are still intertwined somehow. And then a third storyline that doesn't feel intertwined at all, but eventually, obviously, becomes intertwined, is they introduce witches to us, and it feels very random, but I am loving it. But they introduce witches to us, and here's the cool thing. They ride wyverns, there's wing leaders, and there's witch covens. And I think that is all ridiculously cool. And I love fantasy witches that are like this clan, and they have different covens with different strengths and weaknesses. And the fact that they ride wyverns is so freaking cool to me. And it gives you a whole different perspective on wyverns as well that I think is very needed after Fourth Wing becoming so mainstream, okay? So I like it a lot. If you don't know the difference between a dragon and a wyvern, first off, but we don't judge. Secondly, here's the difference, okay? So that's all I have to say about that. But Heir of Fire, like I said, there's a few different subplots happening at the same time, but they eventually do all start to get pulled together. I'm halfway through, I think it's Queen of Shadows, I think is the book after Heir of Fire, and I'm halfway through that. Am I confused? Yes, but that's okay. It's still really good, and I still am really enjoying it. I'm just a little more confused than I was with Heir of Fire, but I think that's just because I need a break from the Throne of Glass universe a little bit. After Queen of Shadows is the 2 books you're supposed to tandem read. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go watch somebody else explain it a little better than me because I don't know how to explain it to you, girly. I don't even know. All I know is that you read those books tandem, so you'll read chapter 1 of the one book, and then chapter 1 of the book after that, and then chapter 2 of that book, and chapter 2 of the book after that, because they take place at the same time, but they weren't written to be tandem read together. Just you can if you want to, because a lot of people say that the book right after the Queen of Shadows is really boring, and you just want to get to the book after that. So people will tandem read to help get through that one book. Again, that's all I know because I try not to get too invested in other people's opinions on this series because so far I haven't, and it's been working out great. So I don't want to ruin it for myself. I really just don't want you to be so overwhelmed, so stressed, so confused with this series that you don't read it because it is fantastic. I think that it is very overwhelming because people are just intense about it, and I just want you to know that it doesn't need to be that overwhelming. Anyways, I'm done yapping. Like I said, I just wanted to be quick. I just wanted you to know, like, here's the vibes. Here's why you should read it, because the vibes are fun. And it's encouragement for you to not get too worked up over a book series. Because at the end of the day, reading isn't serious. It's supposed to be fun. It's something that should be casual and enjoyable. And me making these videos is just a fun way for me to showcase that or to look back on it later and be like, oh my gosh, yeah, I remember that. So hopefully you do end up giving this series a try if you haven't yet. If you have, I would love to hear your take and your opinion, what you think, the order you read them in. And I think that's it. I think I'm done yapping now. So hopefully I will see you in the next one. I do just want to say thank you for the love that I got from Wings of Starlight. I really enjoyed making that video and I enjoyed editing it, putting it together. I love this quick paced type videos, and I thank you for the love that you showed it. So yeah, that's all I got. And hopefully you like and subscribe if you like this video, if you like books, if you like meat. I don't know. I don't really care. And hopefully I will see you in my next video, okay? Bye.